Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode today of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Thank you so much for being here. We've got a few technical difficulties here in our firm this morning, but thank you for your patience with me. We're starting a little bit slower than we normally do, but welcome. Thank you. I was reading the latest DACA settlement proposal. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the government shutdown, which, yes, is still happening. We are shut down. The executive branch, to some degree, is shut down. And we'll talk about the DACA updates and what's happening today. And so welcome, and thank you so much for tuning in right now for another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. My name is Otis Landerholm. Really grateful to be here with you today on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, whatever platform you're tuning in from. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to today's episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Remember, the Empowered Immigrant Live is here to train, teach, inspire, and empower immigrants to make the most out of immigration laws and to make the most out of their lives. All right, so today our theme is the government shutdown and how will that affect your case, and also DACA updates. All right, so we'll talk about what's happening today, right? And so my question for you is, do you want to get a green card? Do you want to get VAWA? Do you want to get a U visa? Do you want to get DACA, perhaps? Do you want to get some kind of benefit, some kind of solution to your immigration situation that will up-level your life legally through immigration laws? Because if so, go for it. And if so, I would love to help you with it. All right, my firm is on a mission to win 10,000 immigration cases in the next 10 years. We would love for your case to be one of them. All right? As always, on these episodes, as I'm talking, if you have questions about your case, feel free to send them my way. I'll do my best to answer them right here, right now, live. And And as always, if this is useful and beneficial content, please take a moment, subscribe to our channel, like the video, share some love, pass the information on to people that you care about in your life who might be affected by the things we're talking about. All right? So to start with, we'll talk about this government shutdown. All right? As of yesterday, the 1st of October 2025, the federal government executive branch has shut down because Congress has not been able to figure out the spending package for the new fiscal year. Remember, the fiscal year always starts October 1st of that next fiscal year. All right, and so Congress is a bit dysfunctional. There's a lot of disagreement, and surprise, surprise, right? So that's where we're at, which means that the government formally shut down yesterday, October 1st. They are still shut down today. They will remain shut down until Congress can come up with an agreement as to how they're going to spend their budget. Okay? So, but what does that really mean for your case? Like, yes, with the government shutdown, some employees might be furloughed. Some federal employees might be furloughed. There might be a few of those folks in the immigration space. But basically, the impact on immigration is going to be very minimal. All right? ICE, right? Immigration Customs Enforcement. Immigration Customs Enforcement is deemed an essential service, right? An essential law enforcement. So they will continue. The FBI continues. Department of Defense, the military continues. All right? Even during a government shutdown. And so any essential service, disaster relief, etc., continues as normal. Even when the government is shut down. Sometimes the employees who are working in those branches have to wait a few extra days before they get paid, because payment processing might not work normally during the government shutdown, but otherwise everything else in the operations will continue as normal. USCIS will continue as normal, by and large. USCIS depends on fees, right? It charges fees to people for the funding of its operations. So it actually doesn't depend on what Congress passes in a funding bill for its being able to function. So USCIS will continue basically as normal. I have heard word that E-Verify will or may shut down, which means that people that are applying for new jobs, and if those jobs use and depend on E-Verify, it might take a few extra days for that process to go through because of the government shutdown. EOIR, the immigration court system, is basically continuing as normal. All detained cases definitely as normal. I believe and have heard word that the regular immigration courts, you can talk to your attorney in your area, but I have heard word that here in the San Francisco Bay Area, where my cases are being heard, they are still being heard as normal, even during the shutdown. So yesterday, today, and we'll see how long it lasts. Border Patrol, Department of State, essential services continuing as normal. All right. I guess the Department of State technically is fee dependent, similar to USCIS, and so because of that, it can function even without regard to this shutdown. So this shutdown, it's a good excuse for the press to say a lot of things and share a lot of information about what's going on, and it will affect certain parts of the economy, etc. But it, by and large, does not affect, or it has very minimal effect on U.S. immigration and immigration law and policy. Okay? So there you go. It's kind of like non-news for the immigration world. So now let me turn and let me talk about DACA. All right? So DACA has been in litigation for a long time, and it's been in litigation in Texas. And so a proposed settlement, I should highlight that word, proposed settlement, was issued in the DACA case just this week. And I want to share a little bit about it because there's a lot of confusion and a lot of kind of like headlines about that too. And I want to share my take about it. I've been reading this morning the pages, I think it's 12 pages, of a settlement proposal. What the settlement says is that it says that only the state of Texas showed, quote unquote, actual injury to the state in the granting of DACA. And so what the proposed settlement does is it narrows the injunction against DACA to the state of Texas only. Okay? Which is going to be messy, but this is what it says, right? What it says is USCIS will resume, if this settlement agreement is approved, which there's a lot that's going to happen in between now and the approval. So right now there's no changes. This is a proposal. But what this proposal suggests is that USCIS will reopen the door for initial filings of DACA unless you're a resident of the state of Texas. Okay? So when we apply for an initial request of DACA, we will need to include evidence of our state of residency to ensure that you do not reside in the state of Texas. And if a person wins DACA, for example, from California, and then relocates or moves to Texas, USCIS, when you upload your change of address form showing that your residence now is in Texas, USCIS will now have to issue a notice of intent to revoke your DACA status, to take your work authorization away if you relocate into Texas. Okay? This is all in the settlement, all right? And if a person has DACA in the state of Texas and then moves outside the state of Texas and then updates their address, they could get a work permit after they move outside of the state of Texas. Okay? And this is all based on my understanding, and this is all a proposal. So, this is all brand new. I literally was reading this morning. And but this is kind of the madness that is in this proposal. It's kind of interesting to read it and to think about it. Okay? They say, again, that USCIS will adjudicate all initial requests for DACA and requests for work permits. If a person is residing in the state of Texas, USCIS can approve the DACA, but will deny and reject the work permit. Okay? So grant you deferred action, no more, will not deport you, but will not authorize employment. Okay? A few more points and then I'll open it up for questions. Another point is DACA recipients in Texas will have deferred action, but will not be considered to be quote unquote lawfully present in the U.S. And so that they're going to create like a separate admissions code category for people who have DACA but are in the state of Texas, because those folks will not be considered lawfully present in the United States. Okay? Remember, a couple final points. Remember, DACA is 100% discretionary, meaning the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and the whole USCIS has the power to approve it and deny it in case-by-case basis. It might be more difficult than ever. Like if they approve initial requests, if this actually goes forward, it will very likely be more difficult than ever to actually win a DACA case. You still have to qualify for it. You still have to demonstrate with evidence that you're eligible for it. And remember, this is just a proposed settlement. It has not been affirmed by the judge. There's still going to be briefings about this proposal, and we expect that there will not be any decision before the end of October. I think the date that I read was October 27th as like the earliest possible date for a decision about this settlement. So it's interesting. There's some news. You definitely want to follow it. If you have submitted an initial request for DACA that's still pending and has been pending perhaps for all these years, you want to follow this. You want to pay attention to it. And of course, if you're living in the state of Texas with an initial DACA application, then you'll want to think that through. All right, you'll want to think that through carefully, because you will not be eligible for it if you're in the state of Texas. You won't be eligible at least for the work permit if this proposal actually goes into effect. So bottom line, there's going to be more news to come here, folks. This is not the end of it. This is the beginning of it. Well, this is not the end of it. I'll just say it like that. And the earliest we could get something final is the end of this month, October of 2025. Okay? So anyway, the best advice, of course, is don't do these things alone. Get support. Get a team behind you. Get empowered. Stay in communication. Subscribe to our channels. Give us a thumbs up and a like. And do the notifications bell so you can receive a notification when we upload additional videos so that you can stay informed. All right? And if you are affected by these changes, then reach out. Have a lawyer that has your back, that has your case, that has your information, and who can guide you through the process. All right? That's all I got today in terms of those updates. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and listening. And now let me do my best to answer the questions that are out there. I do see a couple. Let's see here. So the one and only, I see your question here. You say, can I apply for a marriage-based green card, resident visa, with a misdemeanor from years ago? So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that question. You are not alone with that question. All right. It depends on what the misdemeanor is for. If it was a controlled substance misdemeanor, for example, then the answer is no. All right. A controlled substance misdemeanor, even though it's a misdemeanor, makes a person inadmissible regardless of the nature of the controlled substance, regardless of when it happened, regardless of the fact that it was just a misdemeanor and not a felony. However, if it was a misdemeanor, what's a different misdemeanor? I don't know. If it was a misdemeanor DUI, for example, I have won maybe hundreds of green card cases through marriage for people with a misdemeanor DUI from years ago. Okay, it is winnable. And so it depends, is the answer. It depends on the precise state code provision, penal code, criminal code provision that you have that conviction under. And my best advice is you talk it through with an immigration lawyer. We can review that. My office does that all the time. And we can give you an assessment of, are you admissible? How can we submit your case? Some cases, just to kind of explain that more clearly, sometimes when you apply for the marriage-based case, sometimes you need to do it with a waiver, okay? Hey, government, here's my crime, I'm sorry, I need to submit a waiver and formally request that the government waive or forgive this crime and grant me my green card. Some cases you don't need to do a waiver, all right? And other cases you can't do it, you can't apply for a waiver. So controlled substance offenses, for example, even though they're misdemeanors, they're not waivable, period. Okay? And so that's the way it works. So hope that's helpful. If you want real help to go through that, please feel free to contact my office. We'd love to help you analyze that situation. All right, Apple user 775, you say, realistically, how long do Texas DACA recipients have to move to avoid unlawful presence? I don't know the answer to that. All right, but yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if, for example, if you moved today, I'm not advising that you move today. I could search this up and get on listservs and figure all these things out, but it's messy. It's such a mess. But for example, if you were to move today and then this exact settlement as proposed goes into effect, if you filed a change of address with the government as quickly as possible right after you move, and you'd have to show evidence that you're residing outside the state of Texas, and that's going to be tricky in situations like that. You're going to need to show a lease. You're going to need to show bank accounts, perhaps, utility bills, perhaps. Go get a library card as soon as you can, showing that you have moved, right? Because otherwise they will be skeptical of people who are DACA recipients and who are claiming that they no longer reside in the state of Texas. They're going to be skeptical of that. They're going to assume that there's a lot of fraud there to try to keep their DACA, right? But who knows what'll happen there, right? My hope is that there's some political pressure inside the state of Texas, right? I think that there likely will be. The chosen one. All right, thank you for your question here. You say, can someone get denaturalized years later if the government finds out that I was already a derivative citizen? That's an interesting question. I wouldn't worry too much about it, because what's the point, right? What's the point to denaturalize you if you're already a derivative citizen? You're already a citizen. You're a citizen either way, right? And so I wouldn't worry too much about it unless you've received a complaint against you that is putting you through the denaturalization process. But I think it's really unlikely, right, if you're already a citizen, that anybody would go through the effort of denaturalizing you then. Let's see, MZC. I'm married to a U.S. citizen, but she and my kid live in Mexico. Can I still fix my status? I live in the U.S. You're married to a U.S. citizen, but your spouse and your child live in Mexico. So I get that situation. You're not alone in that situation. Thank you for being here. Can you fix your status through your marriage if you're apart? I mean, there's going to be all kinds of challenges with that, right? Like they're going to, I mean, if you have a biological child together through your marriage, then perhaps they wouldn't be suspicious of your marriage, all right? The other problem legally, though, is that when a person files a petition, like when your wife files a petition, your wife also has to sign Form I-864. But in order to do an I-864, a person has to be quote unquote domiciled in the United States. What does that mean? It means she has to have their last address where with the intent to permanently reside, right, was in the United States. And so there are things that you could do there, have her relocate to the U.S., domicile herself in the U.S., and then go back to Mexico temporarily. Things like that can be done. So yes, here's my answer. Yes, it's possible. Yes, theoretically, you still could fix your status living in the U.S. with your spouse and child in Mexico, but it is going to be more complicated to do your case for that reason. Your spouse will definitely need to come into the U.S. When you go to your interview, right? To go with you to your interview. And, and there are things to think about through, as the process goes. It also depends on the type of case you're filing. Is it a consular case versus an adjustment of status? There's things you're going to want to think through. Get a lawyer. Don't do this type of case alone. If you don't have a lawyer yet, feel free to call my office. We can help you through this. All right? And part of the helping you through it might be recommending that your wife and your child move back to the U.S. until you get your green card. Not necessarily, but that might be the best advice. All right, and thank you for being here, and thank you for asking that question. So, Mbake Mame, I'm saying your name incorrectly, I'm sure, but thank you so much for being here. You say, I have a temporary 551 pending I-751. Can I travel? I mean, I talk to your lawyer about any complications related to your case, but typically, yes. All right, like I have several clients who are in your situation, temporary 551, pending I-751, travel without issue. All right. An I-751, you're a conditional permanent resident. You have all the rights of a lawful permanent resident of the United States. And you shouldn't travel if you have certain arrests. You shouldn't travel in certain situations. If you have deportability issues, inadmissibility issues, etc. Talk it through with your lawyer. Okay? JJ and Georgie. All right, you say, I had a DUI before receiving my 10-year green card. It was a straightforward DUI. Am I allowed to travel outside the U.S.? So, and all that happened before receiving your 10-year green card. That's very important. Best advice, so yes, you have a permanent green card, wonderful. Yes, travel outside the U.S. When you travel outside, carry your disposition showing that your DUI was, you complied with it. Show them what the conviction record was, right? Travel, have your green card, show them that you had that before your green card was issued, right? If you travel with the certified disposition, certified conviction record, then that'll help the Border Patrol official who looks at your case understand, okay, they might not even ask to see it, but if they do ask to see it, you'll have it there with you. It'll cause a lot less complications for you when re-entering the United States. All right. Brit1234, is it safe to travel within the U.S. with a pending naturalization case and pending removal of conditions? So, yes. Yes, you're a lawful permanent resident of the United States. Have your pending removal of conditions, pending citizenship paperwork with you when you're traveling. And yes, you should be okay. You should be safe. If there are issues in your case, perhaps it's wise to avoid certain states, and perhaps it's wise to avoid 50 miles of any U.S. border, perhaps. But you have a green card, and you have a pending citizenship case, so you should be okay. All right, you probably have a real ID driver's license also, and so you should be okay. Bianca, your question, is DACA opened up again? Not in Texas. The answer is no, DACA is not opened up again. All right, I'm filming this on the 2nd of October of 2025. What I announced today is just a proposed reopening of DACA. All right, it's just a proposed settlement in the DACA case. There is a lot that still needs to happen in between today and that proposal actually taking effect. One of those things is the judge needs to agree with it. All right, which that Judge Hannon, right, in Texas has said that DACA is illegal. All right, and so we will see if any of this goes forward. It is very unclear at this stage. There will be more to say about it in between now and the 27th of October, potentially even longer than that. All right, how much for FOIAs? All right, FOIAs, different lawyers, different law offices do FOIAs differently. All right, so if you want our office to handle your FOIA request, let's start with a consultation and we can understand your situation. We can determine which FOIAs we're going to request for you, right? USCIS, Immigration Court. We often run records through the FBI, through the California Department of Justice, if you live in the state of California, through OBIM, which is the Office of Biometrics and Identity Management within immigration, right? ICE, sometimes Department of State, sometimes. Like we want to help you, and we want to get all the records that we need and review them carefully and thoroughly so that we can give you the best advice possible. All right, and that depends on your situation. So feel free to give us a call. Let's schedule a consult and let's figure it through. All right, but if you're looking for just quick, cheap, just run a FOIA and that's it, that's not what our office does. All right, we want to analyze those FOIAs. All right, we want to really give you a thorough plan of action because this is your life we're talking about, right? Bianca, do you think they will approve that proposal? There might be some changes to it. I don't think they will just approve it as is. I think there will be briefing, right? And arguments for and against. And I think that we will see what the final version looks like. Okay? Nevertheless, I was happy with the proposed settlement that was issued, right? I'm sad for my clients that are in the state of Texas that have DACA or that applied or would like to apply for DACA. I'm sad for them, but I also am hopeful that there will be political pressure in the state of Texas if DACA reopens everywhere else, right? Brit 1234. Do you need to carry the original pending case documents or are copies okay? Copies are okay. All right, you're applying for citizenship and you need to take original green cards and passports when traveling outside the US, of course. But if you're traveling inside the US, take your original real ID, driver's license, real ID, whatever type of real ID you have. Take perhaps your original receipt notices of your citizenship and receipt notices of your I-751. But all the other stuff, I mean, you don't even need copies of all the other stuff, in my opinion, right? If you want to carry copies just out of precaution, okay, but those things are sufficient, all right? All right, I think that's it, folks. I think that's it. Thank you all so much for being here. All right, thanks to everybody on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. Thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate you. If this was useful, if this was helpful, please take a moment, go to our channel in YouTube. Landerholm Immigration is our name in YouTube. Hit the subscribe button or on whatever platform, hit the like button. Give us some thumbs up. Give us some love. And I really appreciate each of you tuning in here. And my name's Otis Landerholm. I'm a certified specialist and an immigration attorney in immigration law. I'm the founding attorney at Landerholm Immigration A.P.C., where we fight for your American dream. And I hope to see you next time on our next episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. Make it a great day, folks.